Perfect. So here's what I thought we would do, everybody, is maybe we'll just start off with maybe Chris, you and Jesse and Blake, and just talk a little bit about yourselves and what you're up to. Then we can have Howard and Eric, talk about their jobs and what they do, and then hear about your career path and how you got to where you are. And then finally, if there are any questions that you guys have, we'll kind of wrap it up like that. Does that sound good, everybody? Okay. So Chris Vaughn, why don't we go ahead and start with you? Just, kind of where you are and your interests.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a sports arts and entertainment management major, graduating in December here. So yeah, my interests are I got into sports sales through Bob. My uncles were salesmen, so I've always kind of been exposed to it, but definitely got more interested once I took the sports sales class. Always been interested in sports in general, so I knew I wanted to either go into sports or entertainment. So I've definitely dialed in on sports recently here. Howard knows I was with the Penguins for a little bit during last school semester, doing an internship there. And then just over the summer here, I've been doing an internship with Top Golf, with the Golf Pro there. I've worked there for 6 years since we opened, so there was an opening with the Golf Pro there. So I got to help him with teaching lessons and running the kids academy at Top Golf, and just doing little, basically being his assistant for the summer. So that's pretty much it here, and then just kind of getting ready for the semester to start pretty soon.
And Chris, you graduate in December, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, this December coming up. Great, thanks.
Yep.
Blake, go ahead.
Okay. My name is Blake Ewing. I'm a third year student here at Point Park. I graduate in 2026. I plan on getting my master's too at Point Park with the 4+1 program. But what brings me here today is I had reached out to Bob about getting some sales experience because that's one thing that I lack a little as far as my background. Originally, I got into the SAM program as wanting to be like a sports agent, but I did a couple internships my freshman year, and found out that it wasn't my niche, I guess, or it wasn't for me, I guess. So, kind of exploring all opportunities, and I wanted to be in like the front office of a sports team down the road, but obviously you need a lot of experience to get up, work your way up in the ranks there. And Bob had mentioned that everyone needs sales experience, so I figured I need to get a little bit of that under my belt or see if I even like it. So that's where I'm at right now, currently.
Yep. And Blake, you graduate again 2026.
2026.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And Jesse, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jesse. I'm a rising senior at Mount Lebanon High School. I'm a manager for our football team, for our three teams, and I'm a student coach for the Arctic Foxes 14U AA team. I want to be an NHL GM when I grow up, which is a pretty lofty goal, but I'm trying to start early with getting my connections and everything. So all the job shadows. I think I'm in a pretty good spot, but I mean, I'm willing to grow my portfolio and everything. So taking all these free opportunities is a nice thing for me.
Great. Jesse, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Howard, why don't you go ahead and kind of talk about what you do, your title and what you do, your time with the Pens.
Yeah. Do you want me to talk a little bit before that too, or
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
okay? So nice to meet you all, Chris. I'm familiar with Chris, of course, but nice to meet you for the first time, Blake, Jesse, and also Eric. Originally from New York. Prior to working with the Penguins, I had worked with the New York Mets, and I started as their one of their inside sales representatives. Similar to you, Blake, coming out of college, I thought I needed some form of sales experience. I was thinking that marketing was the route, but after doing an internship in marketing, no shade or anything towards marketing. I just felt like my personality was best fit, like interacting more with people. And I had some good mentors that gave me some good advice as well. So that's the route in which I took. And I also wanted to understand, because I had like a business type of mind, I think, how to generate revenue to an organization or for oneself. So sales was essentially the route for me. I did inside sales with the New York Mets, and they had a pretty like robust like sales process, right? Like we had two trainings every week. Our goal was to get people down to the arena or the ballpark and be able to pitch a product there. But the main thing was like getting to know them and getting to know why they'd like to buy. So I was in inside sales doing that for, I want to say, around 6 months, trying to make the most calls, trying to book the most meetings, in efforts to generate the most revenue in my class. After 6 months, I was able to get promoted to our group sales department. And there, I think that's where my sales skills kind of like expanded. I loved like just getting to know people a little bit more, which made like my pitches a little bit more genuine. And I did that for around, I want to say 4 to 5 years up until I came here, where the opportunity was to literally start our group sales department from the ground up. Penguins, as many of you may know if you're from the Pittsburgh area, always had its name and was always known for like selling out games. But for the right or wrong reasons, depending on which way you stood. There wasn't really a groups department. And with the new ownership in Fenway Sports Group and like just a more revenue focus for the Penguins, like it made sense to create a groups department. So essentially what I do is I oversee all group initiatives, whether it's the group ticket buying, the experiences in which we provide, the benefits in which we provide for these groups. You guys may know, you may not know, but some groups, depending on their threshold, they get the opportunity to come down onto the ice after the game to either take a shot or a photo or something like that, or even get the opportunity to ride the Famboni. And we're all about not only just selling groups, but also providing like long lasting memories to people that may or may not have thought of coming out to a Penguins game. Like last year, for the first time, we had some dance studios that were able to perform, not necessarily on the ice, but perform for all of the fans in our arena to be able to see. And that just helps us to continue to generate more Penguins fans, right? Like these little girls that would probably rather dance than watch a hockey game get to do both at one time. And then hopefully that leads to them being long term Penguins fans. So it's been quite the process, especially like building a department from the ground up. You have to think there has to be sales reps, there has to be some benefits, there has to be things in which we're able to sell. But we're in a better spot than we were last year, even the year before that, and we're doing good work. So it's been good thus far.
Nice, great. Thank you, Howard. And Eric, give us a little background on you.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet everyone. You too, Howard. Yeah, so my name is Eric. I had a little bit of a different route than Howard did, but we all got to similar spots. So I'm originally from Florida, just north of Jacksonville. I moved to Pittsburgh in 2012, finished up school at Point Park in 2021, and then I got a job with the Washington Wild Things, which is a minor league baseball team here in just outside of Pittsburgh. So what I did there was I was an account executive, so I did anything that had to do with sales. Sponsorship sales, group sales, premium sales, season tickets. Literally, if there was sales involved, I was probably part of that process. So I learned a lot about the difference between sponsorship and group sales and how you approach those sales differently. A sponsorship sale is going to be a longer process than a group sale. So like if I wanted to, get 10 grand out of a company, I would probably spend 6 months on that or 6 to 8 months probably. Whereas like a group sale, I would, kind of is like a speed sale to me kind of. So you could get a group sale done in, a day. Like it all just depends on who you're selling to, how you're selling to them. I love what Howard said about getting to know who you're selling to, because I think that is, the hugest, it's the biggest portion of the sale, because once you find out what they want, what their intentions are, what their goals are, you're going to be able to provide a product to them specifically. So it's not necessarily like selling our product and what we can provide. It's what they're going to get out of it in the long term. So I do agree with that 100%. But back to the Wild Things. So I did that for 2 seasons, got bumped up to senior account executive, I guess, had um, did all the hiring for like the game day staff and things like that. So interns, anything that had to do with the box office, um, kind of staff those positions. We were a small organization. There was only 6 of us in the front office, so we did everything. So it was, if if our concession guy needed help, making hot dogs, we were there on game days making hot dogs. So it's like it's not as glamorous as it might be like working for the Penguins or the Steelers or the Mets or something like that, but it teaches you a lot about the foundation of where sports are born, and that's providing people with an experience that they're never going to forget and want to enjoy and come back to. So I mean that's minor league baseball at its finest. So like now working with the Steelers, I do season tickets. So my title now is account executive or group or ticket sales and retention account executive. Sorry, it's like it's a lot, but mainly what we do here at the Steelers is a lot different than what I did. It's still sales, but it's more customer service based. Mainly because the Steelers kind of sell themselves. It's not really like we're going out trying to find new business, trying to sell season tickets. We have a 20-year wait list, so it's really trying to make sure that we retain the season ticket holders that we have, and that's still the same process. So it's still getting to know who's buying your tickets and what do they want and what do they want to get out of their 10-game home stand that we have. So back in baseball, we had 50 home games. We had a lot of times to make an impression on those fans, but now we have 10. So each game is more important because you don't have as many opportunities to make a good impression. So if there is a bad impression, those last longer because we don't see them as often. So it's try to make those benefits for our season ticket holders better, trying to provide more events that aren't just game days and it's 4 quarters of football, which everybody loves, but it's how do we get them to the stadium that's not game days, or how do we get them an experience where they can come and see the locker room, where they can meet a player, or like there's different opportunities to make their $4,000 that they spend with us worth it. So it's similar to what Howard was saying, just kind of a little bit of a different approach to it. So that's kind of what I do with the Steelers now. So
That's great. And I want to give Jesse, you and Chris and Blake a chance to ask some questions, but I just want to have a follow-up with you, Eric, on, I get asked a lot of times when students are looking at, job opportunities, and they'll ask, is it worth it for me to go into minor league sports? And will that help me get into, the major leagues at some point? So you're an example of doing that. What would be your answer to that question?
I think it's extremely worth it. I mean, you get to learn so much so fast. Whereas, like, if you go to a major organization, you're going to be limited to your department. Everybody's got their own duties. So, like, if I need something that's from ticket operations, I just send them an email and they do it for me. Whereas in the minor league system, I was ticket operations, I was sales, I built every event. I also sold every event. So, like, you're going to learn way more at a faster rate than you ever would at a huge organization. Don't get me wrong, I love working for the Steelers, but I just think like the learning process right out of school is so beneficial for you, whether that's marketing or sales or stadium operations. I mean, you dabble in everything. So like even though I was specifically an account executive doing sales, I had a little bit of merchandise experience and I started helping out with that. And I had a little bit of stadium ops with concessions and things like that. So it's, and ticket scanners, hiring those folks. So it's like you get to dabble in a lot of different departments where I don't think you kind of get that experience at the major level. So I definitely think it's an experience everybody should try to get under their belt for sure.
Yeah, and to add to that, to Eric's point, like I think all experiences can help you, especially if you have a goal like Jesse, right? Like a very lofty goal. Like you're going to need all your experiences to help you at that level, as opposed to like just honing in on one experience. Like never in my life did I think I need Excel until now, right? Like as a sales rep, you don't really use Excel like that. But like now it can help me if I would have paid attention in college or something like that. Like I would have probably been better off with that experience. So like if there's an opportunity and you think you could gain something from it, do it no matter like the level it is, because at the end of the day, it'll only help you.
Yeah. Great point. Great point, Howard. So for both of you, and then I'm going to switch it over to everybody, I promise. But for both of you, like what are the, part of the things I'm trying to do with our sports sales class and other activities that we have at Point Park is to convince students to consider sales as a career, because there are some, misconceptions about what sales is, and this idea of, that you've got to be this certain kind of person who's, overly aggressive and super caffeinated, and you won't stop at anything, and I've got to be somebody that I'm not. So can maybe both of you guys talk about why your personalities, because I'm guessing your personalities might be a little bit different, like why your personalities work in sales. Howard, let's start with you.
I think the first thing that you'll realize in sales is that you just have to be open. It's not the fact that you have to fit a particular personality. You just have to be open to learning new things and customize it to basically how you like how you may speak or act or do anything like that. Like me personally, just going back to experience. Well, one, I don't drink coffee. Um, I may dabble every now and again, but that's not something that like I need to get going. Like I grew up playing basketball and I was very like motivated by like just trying to outwork someone. And now it's like, how does that translate to a sales role? You just have to find how it can translate to a sales role. I also did a number of different jobs that I didn't realize was helping me speak to customers. Like when I was in college, I worked at the gym and I worked the morning shift, call it like 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Typically speaking, the people that are in the gym in the morning aren't necessarily students. So like I was finding myself in conversations with the people that were in the community of my school. And again, like those are experiences that I was able to know that I didn't necessarily see it as uncomfortable. I just saw it as me being me and then apply it to
Mm.
my now sales role kind of thing. So like you'll be surprised in a number of different experiences that you've had throughout your life that you'd be able to utilize in a sales role. So like don't think you need to fit a specific ideal as a salesperson. Like use what you've experienced and be open to new things and you'll be good.
Great. Thank you for that. Eric, how about you? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I definitely think, you kind of everybody has their own approach to a sale. So I wouldn't say like my sale is going to be the same exact as Howard, but we're going to get to the same result most likely. Just going to be a little bit different of our approach. My background, I grew up as a military kid, so I moved around a lot. I love meeting new people, seeing new places, going new, doing new activities and things like that. So like I spent most of my life trying to meet new friends, trying to, talk to people that I didn't know, talk to them at on a level where they might introduce me to something that I wasn't aware about and vice versa. And I kind of take that experience and use it in my sales life because, one, you never know where somebody came from. And, you never know how they grew up or anything like that. So it goes back to trying to figure out, why they're even here to begin with. So I think my interest about where people came from, what their interests are, how they grew up, those kinds of things to make people feel comfortable. I think that's kind of my personality. I think I try to make people as comfortable as possible, just because I knew how uncomfortable I was, being in a new situation or talking to a different individual. So I think, making somebody feel comfortable that not necessarily would be happy about opening up to you, but in the long run that you might get some information out of them that they weren't going to tell somebody else because they were uncomfortable. So I think, having that approach for me works very well. I think I, I'm not a very persistent salesman, but I do like to, give my pitch and then leave them alone for a while. Like I don't necessarily come back right away and aggressively try to bring you on board or anything like that. I think it's more of the if they have questions, then I'll come back and give a second pitch or like an additional option that might persuade them to. So instead of taking the aggressive approach, I try to make them feel comfortable where they can talk to me and get more ideas. And even if they don't buy this year, they could buy next year. So it's like they'll even continue to come back to at least have a conversation. So it's I try to go that route personally, but I just think that that's from my background and it works for me. So
Yeah. Well, and so, Blake, Chris, Jesse, I hope you can see already, these are just two really good guys that are working in sales as their career. And, I think I would be open to hearing what they have to say. I don't feel like at any point either one of you guys would have pushed me to the point where I'm going to buy something I don't want or can't afford. And it is all about relationships. And so you guys are great examples of that. So let's go around. Chris, maybe start with you. What questions, a question maybe for Howard and Eric?
Sure. Well, I wanted to say first of all, just on the topic of kind of putting it in the customer's hands and not being too like aggressive. I got put on the Pirates like sales list. So they gave me calls like before the season started this year, just because I went to so many games last year, and I obviously wasn't going into the season thinking I was going to buy season tickets or anything, but I decided to just hear the guy out on the phone who was talking because I wanted to kind of hear what his pitch was like. And it was very similar to what Eric was saying, just in terms of like, hey, just giving you the options here, no pressure. So I just wanted to say that because I think that's just a really good approach to things, and I think that that's how I would be in that role, just kind of being more conversational and just making a connection more than like pushing it on people. So um, and then as for a question, the first one I had here was for Howard. Um, in terms of group sales, how do you differentiate like somebody who's coming up in inside sales or even somebody who's in a different just sector of sales? How do you like, what are some qualities that you look in somebody where you think like, oh, they might be good in group sales as opposed to different?
Um, you may not get a traditional answer from me because when I was coming out of inside sales, I wasn't saying like, oh yeah, I want to go into group sales necessarily. I wanted to get promoted, just being completely honest. And um, at the Mets, it was a different type of situation. We had over probably like 20 people in inside sales, and 10 of us were able to get promoted to around the same time to either a season ticket side or a group sales side. I got promoted to the group sales side, and my thought process wasn't, oh my gosh, like my thought process was how would I get to how can I sell the most group tickets possible, right? So what I'd say in regards to like someone that is interested in group sales, like yes, it's very important to be passionate about the group, and which is something that I was able to fall into. It wasn't something that started me, but it's something that I was able to fall into. Passionate about the groups, but it's also important to be passionate about like your process. Be passionate about like what's working for you, what's not working for you, passionate about your development, right? Like what are the things that I need to get better at in efforts to make me better in speaking to people? For me, just personally speaking, like I'd always bump heads with my manager at the time, but it was like, as you mentioned, like it's building a connection. And how do you build a connection? You ask questions, but you also share about yourself. Like where I'd limit the amount of times in which I shared about myself, and that hindered me on a good amount of opportunities, at least when I first started. And when I started to share more about myself, you realize, like, again, it's literally just connecting and getting to know someone and understanding what's important to them and understanding your product and how that might be able to provide some type of value to them. So, like, I'd say just be passionate about what you're doing, like, continue to continue to want more because again you're in a sales role, so like essentially like you eat what you kill. Just to point out Olivia, mainly because she went to Point Park, she went through the student sales program, she went through inside sales, and now she's on the groups team. Like Olivia isn't necessarily the most like loud, outgoing, in your face type of person, but she's seeing success mainly because she's very, very hungry. She's very open to learning, and like you give her a blueprint, she's running with it. So like, and it works for her. Again, for someone that's, I'd say, completely opposite from me. Like I may be a little bit more loud. I may be not necessarily in your face, but like outgoing, where she's quiet, respectful, loves to learn, is hungry, and it works for her. So
It's
And
great.
to go off of that, I mean, just based off my group experience with the Wild Things, creativity is huge in group sales because there are different avenues that I never even thought about people buying groups when I was selling them at the Wild Thing. So like I would sell groups to karate studios and they'd come out and do like a karate thing before the game. I never thought of that, like I would go through like different avenues like that where you can find kids and parents that are always trying to find stuff for their summer camps. And there's so many different ways to be creative with your group so you're not just you know calling banks all the time and calling, big corporations where it's no fun for you. Like, hey, I got group tickets for you. Like it's try to make it interesting so that you're kind of excited. Like, and then you get to, I don't know, see a fun pregame show maybe, or like and then afterward you can kind of feel success from that and say, hey, I put those folks in the seats and you can kind of get a sense of satisfaction. But I definitely think, finding groups outside of the normal realm will definitely help you in the long run. So,
and sorry, I'll add to that too, because you had me thinking as well, Eric. So like creativity is probably, I wouldn't put it as number one, but it's definitely up there. And the reason I bring that up is when I was in groups, we had a gentleman, one of my good friends till this day. He went to UNC Chapel Hill and he was in the band, and he had an idea of like, how can I mix what I love with what I do? And he was able to create like an amazing band day, right? Like for the first time ever, like we had four different bands play literally on the warning track, the national anthem. And again, it had never been done before that, but that was literally him mixing what he loved with what he does. And just to throw numbers out there, that event alone, which is one day, one game day out of 81 or two, I forget, not working in baseball anymore, that generated $40,000 in revenue for him. Again, one day, just based off what he loved to do with what he does, that was able to generate tons of revenue. So, like, it could be as simple as that, like just coming up with a cool idea. Um, but yeah, being creative is definitely important as well, where you'd be able to find opportunity.
And Howard, that's a great example. We have a good friend. Her name is Dana Druniak, and she does group sales for the Cavaliers, and she's been there a number of years. She's a $1 million salesperson there, and she loves group sales. I mean, I say to her, "Do you want to move up? Do you want?" No, I found my spot. I love it. I do it well. And for example, she had a group of I think it was a dance team or something that started at 200. It's now like at 1,000 people that come at $50 a pop. She's doing $50,000 for a night just on one group that she's worked over the years. So it's pretty amazing what you can do in that space. Really is. Well, Chris, great question. Thank you for that. Blake, a question for these guys?
Yeah, I've had a question. I guess it pertains to both of you, Eric and Howard. It involves the different type of sports you guys have been around as far as in the sales industry. Do you notice that much of a difference, or is it kind of a universal, um, not in terms of the pitch, but I guess universal like environment as far as the sales aspect of things in both, I guess, baseball and football and hockey?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think the environments for football for the Steelers at least. I can't speak to any other organization, but in the Steelers specifically, it's a lot quieter in our sales office, than it was in minor league baseball. Like we would be on the phones constantly, trying to find new ideas, new prospects, trying to find new information. So it was always loud, and it was like you had to kind of really focus on what you're doing and try to tune out that noise because everybody's working hard. So it's like if it was quiet, something was wrong and we should all probably leave the building. But so with the Steelers, it's a little bit quieter. So like I work in a building in a room now with my department and sponsorship and activation. So we're all in the same room. So we call it the sales side, and across the hall is the marketing team. So on our side, it's quiet. Everybody's doing deals, but it's not quite the atmosphere or you don't like feel the energy, but like when you get on a call, nobody's going to tell you to be quiet or anything like that, but it's just like it's a different atmosphere. It's like um there's not as many sales reps either, so it's like because we don't really need reps necessarily. So our sponsorship team has 3 reps that do 4 reps that do sales, and then we have 3 account executives on our department. So we have a lot of more service calls, so it's not quite as demanding for like prospecting and trying to reach out all the time. So it's a little bit quieter. I think you know, I would say it's a lot different, to be honest. But that's baseball and football, which it kind of I would say would be expected, I think. But I mean, that's just the difference between minor league and the NFL, I guess. So
So
good
overall, it
question.
sounds like is it pretty common or easy to make the transition from sport to sport, or once you're in a sport, you kind of stick with that sport throughout your whole career?
I think the transition was pretty seamless for me. I think you're always going to have to find you know the right way the organization wants you to do things. So like each organization might be a little different on policies and the way they go about certain things, but I think for the most part they're all going to be relatively similar. So you're going to have a good enough of a base to fit right into any organization that you go to, I think so.
Okay, that makes sense.
I could add to that as well. Culture, I think it depends on the organization. I don't think it's necessarily what sport it is. It just mainly depends on the organization. And what I'd recommend, like all of you to do is like make sure that wherever you go, the culture lines up with what your goals and initiatives are, like for your career. Like I learned very early on, like you work with good people that are focused on I'm goal oriented, but you work with good people that are focused on goals, like you'll end up where you want to be as opposed to you being goal oriented and somebody that you work for either above or below or anything like that isn't necessarily goal oriented. It's going to be tough to be within that type of culture if you're of that.
Okay, thank you.
And to piggyback on that, Howard, again, I don't want to bring up the Cavs again, but we do a tour kind of the Cavs offices to give everybody a sense of what it feels like to be in a sales room. And I don't know, Chris, were you up there with us in Cleveland when we did that? I don't recall if you were not. Okay. But anyway, I think everyone should, sort of experience or see what the experience is like where you might work. I mean, it's not necessarily the Cavs, but you might just be able to see, like, can I work in that environment? Can I work in a room where there are 60 other people, or do I want to be in an environment where there are 6? I mean, you need to think about that and what is most beneficial to you. And I found that the students that we take to Cleveland each year that go through that sales room are like, wow, this looks like a lot of fun. I think I want to be here. And I don't think they thought that before visiting. So you're right, Howard. The cultures are different, and it depends. You know, within the same sport, the cultures could be completely different, just depending upon who your boss is, right? And you really need to check that out. So, Blake, great question. All right, Jesse, what question do you have for these guys?
So how do you and your colleagues kind of keep their morale high when the team is struggling? Because a lot of the stuff is like out of your control with sales and marketing. Like you don't necessarily know the demographics of the people you're reaching out to, or if a family has 5 kids, it's harder to get them to a Penguins game than it is for me and my friends to go down for one night. So kind of how do you find a good balance between like rooting for the team and wanting the team to be successful versus you as an individual and trying to make a good name for yourself and I mean make money.
Yeah, What I'd say, and you probably hear it a lot, like being in sports, like the sales side or the marketing side or whatever side of sports, like the revenue generating side of sports is like we don't sell wins and losses. We more so sell experiences, right? So like if the team is doing bad, similar to what Eric had mentioned before, like you have to bring a type of energy and funness for someone to want to have a conversation with you. And I think people buy into that a little bit more as opposed to you just trying to call them, pitch them as to why they should be buying, right? Like they buy for their reasons. They buy mainly because they like, they know, and they trust you. If they didn't do any of those three, they could just buy online, right? But we're calling for a bigger purpose than just trying to sell them tickets. I guess how we kind of cope with it at the end of the day, like the goals and budgets are set way before like games are even played. So like whether the team is good or not, like our goal is our goal, and it goes back to like being goal oriented if that's who you want to be, right? Like you have to surround yourself with people that are going to put you in position to be able to hit those goals no matter what the team does. Now, what I will say is if the team plays well, we can use that to our benefit. Like I was able to see that coming up through the Mets, where when I first started, team wasn't so good. And I'd say it's probably better to sell for whether it's a minor league team or a team that isn't that good because you get to cut your teeth in some things in which you probably wouldn't be able to cut your teeth in if the team is just well. Um, and then we were able to see the team do good my last season with the Mets. And because of that experience beforehand, I was able to capitalize even more on the team being well. But we don't sell wins and losses. That's the main reason why we continue to host like trainings and things like that, because we'll run into things in which most of them we can overcome, but some things we just can't. So we want to put ourselves in the best position to see what, or at least know what we have coming at us, and then be able to, I don't want to say counter it, but like overcome something like that.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, what we used to say when I worked for the Wild Things was we're family entertainment with 9 innings of baseball sprinkled in between. So I never spoke once about the baseball game when I was doing a sales pitch at the Wild Things. Sure, when they were winning, that was fine, or we made the playoffs, like, okay, that's, we're in the running. Like towards the end of the season, you could probably start to use that a little bit for you. But I mean, honestly, for the most part, I don't think I spoke once about who's playing where or anything like that. So I think it's about what you're doing in between the innings rather than what's going on during the baseball game. The baseball is going to be baseball. Sports are going to be sports. People are going to enjoy that aspect of it. But it's what are you going to do when there's no sports being played? Like, how do you get somebody to stick around if you're down 4-0 going into the bottom of the eighth? Like, how do you and then how do you get them to come back? So like I think it's finding those values and those types of experiences. I think that's what sells. That's the sports are going to sell online. Like Howard said, you can get your casual sports fan to just, go buy their tickets themselves. But how do you get those big groups to keep calling you back or keep talking to you? And it's what goes on outside of the sports being played on the ice or the field. So I would agree.
That's great. Jesse, great question. Thank you. Blake, Chris, Jesse, any final questions? Go ahead, Jesse. We'll do one more and then we'll let these guys go. Go ahead.
Okay, I kind of have like a two-part one. So you guys were talking about how you did like the kind of partnerships and sales with the dancers and the karate students, of course, but have you ever explored like going sport to sports to say, like my family did this one day, like we called it the sports day, and we went downtown and watched the Pirates game, and then that night was the Riverhounds fireworks game or whatever. So it was kind of like a back-to-back thing that worked out well. We could get dinner and stuff. Have you ever explored like working with each other to kind of do a combo ticket package or kind of help each other out? So it could be like, oh, the Steelers have a game Sunday, well, Penguins have an afternoon game on Saturday night. Could we kind of do a weekend in Pittsburgh type of deal and see if both of you guys could benefit from it? And also, with the draft coming to Pittsburgh, what are your roles going to be, especially you, Eric? Like, are you going to be promoting that, or is that more a visit Pittsburgh type of deal?
Yeah, so to go off your first question there, I mean, I think that I've at least seen in other cities, which I've tried to, bring up every now and then. I know that we're constantly busy, but it's like we're trying to always find new things. But they do like a season ticket holder day where like it's not there's no sports being played, but all season ticket holders from all three major sports get together, or all four major sports, whatever kind of city you have, and they throw an event either at your baseball field or at the football stadium or at the hockey rink. Like they throw an event on just specifically for, let's just say, Pittsburgh season ticket holders, which I thought was interesting. So I know that there are teams out there that are doing things like that. I'm not sure, I don't want to speak for anybody in Pittsburgh, but I know like a lot of our season ticket holders are also Penguin season ticket holders. So you're gonna have a lot of overlap when it comes to like trying to get people to buy tickets for each game or for each team. We already have that going on technically, I guess. It helps when the Pens have been so good for so long, the Steelers have been so good for so long, so you get the natural support of that. But um, I definitely think that there are opportunities where teams can work together. Implementing that is a lot harder than it sounds, but it's definitely a thought. For the draft, we technically don't really have any involvement. So that's going to be all Visit Pittsburgh and the NFL. So the NFL kind of runs those, like in Detroit, like the city of Detroit ran that, set that up. The NFL staffed it. So like it's like the league handles that with the city that it's in. So we don't really play a part in that. I mean, it benefits us because we get to, make new benefits for our season ticket holders. Like that's an opportunity for us to show face and um, get exposure to, it's like another event that we are just gaining on top of our football game. So it's a good experience for us. But unfortunately, yeah, we don't have a whole lot of play in that. So
You know.
I'd say similar things to what Eric mentioned. Like I haven't seen it, but it sounds cool. Like being able to put together like I don't know about package necessarily, but maybe like that, as you mentioned, Eric, like the season ticket holder day. I think a lot of people would benefit, and I don't know exactly how it'd go, but like maybe from like a tour of all three with like some food and like I just think about the event that you guys did. I don't know the name of it, but where people got to come down and like basically tour the different places at Acrisure. I'm still learning in different places. Um, I think hosting something like that for all season ticket holders, but like even doing it in like time frames, like okay, this time Penguin season ticket holder or however they'd like to do it, but like just being able to tour all three within the same day with some food and beverage and things like that would be cool, while also having like alumni there and things like that. I think something like that would be cool. Um, but as far as the packages, that's above my pay grade. So I guess it's mainly on the powers that be. You have to speak to when you get to become a GM of the Penguins, you could start speaking to like the president of the entire organizations and let them know that that's something that you'd like to do because you were able to take advantage of it as a kid growing up in Pittsburgh and you saw benefit to it as well.
Yeah, it's a great point. Great point. Thank you both. So Howard and Eric, we really appreciate your time. Again, I thought it was great to hear just about sort of where you've come from and, what you guys are currently doing and that there is interest in sales, that can go in a lot of different directions. And it doesn't have to be necessarily a cookie cutter kind of thing, but it's something that I hope students, I hope Jesse, you'll consider it. Maybe Jesse, you get involved with that before you become general manager, and Blake and Chris, you as well, to just, you can never, these experiences you get in sales, you can use for the rest of your life, regardless of what you end up doing. Because at the end of the day, aren't we just always, selling ourselves in one way or another? But you guys did a terrific job of explaining that, so we really appreciate it. And again, I'm going to provide this recording to our class, our sports sales class. and would love to have you guys back again another time to maybe talk about how things are going with both of your organizations. So thank you very much. And everybody, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you
Thank
guys
you.
for your time.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Nice to meet you guys.
LinkedIn
Thank you,
bot.
guys.
You're
Jesse,
welcome,
Thank
Jesse.
you.
Best
Connected
of
with
luck to you, Jesse. Blake, I'll
Fair
see you
enough.
soon. Chris, I'll see you this afternoon.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Bob, did you
All right,
Bob,
see
did
you
you say
guys.
our sports sales class works with is it Howard with the sales team, or is that just the Pirates?
Yeah, no, we work, and so Olivia will be spearheading our Penn sales team, which we'll
Oh,
get
okay.
to. Yeah, we'll get to that in October.
Okay, October. All right.
So
Sounds good.
that'll be coming
Thank you.
soon. All right, guys. Thanks again.
Thank you.
You're welcome.